The third and final race this weekend at Anglesey for the Toyo Tires Porsche Championship. Reverse grid format sees Andy Baker starting in pole position, but as you can see, the conditions are absolutely downpour. The rain is coming down, everything is soaked. It's going to make it very tricky for the drivers, and just to add an extra element of excitement in, it's a pit stop race. The cars will have to come in during the pit stop window, and there are 3 tags, one on the back, one on the front window here, and one down at the front splitter that will have to be removed before the cars can go back out on track. An extra element of excitement and unpredictability into what was already going to be an exciting race. It's over to Jake Sanson.
What's more exciting than 2 epic races at Anglesey? Reverse grid and pit stops, that's what. Andrew Baker and Matthew Harris on the front row from Gary Lawrence and Toby Smales. Molyneux and Southgate from James Coleman, and sadly no Nick Hull, although he should be 8th on the grid. Lee Bowden, Ian Gribben, Hugh Pert, Peter Smith and Gavin Johnson fill out the rest of the grid. Nick Hull not starting due to his accident damage from race 2, and there's a lot of rain, and there's a pit stop race to consider as well. Lights out, let's race at Anglesey for the 3rd time of asking, and it's a cracking start from Southgate already as he charges forward. We're on board with James Coleman, a lot of standing water on the circuit this time as Molyneux dives up the inside, makes a couple of places. Smales is getting caught out on the far side by Matthew Harris, and who's in the lead? I can't see through the spray. Southgate is making his bid for the lead and is already into 2nd place behind Lawrence. Coleman up to 3rd past Molyneux, so that start has already given us plenty of overtaking, but look at the spray everywhere as Gary Lawrence is there in the lead of the race from Southgate. We're looking at James Coleman in front of us, chucking masses of walls of spray into our windscreen as we make our way through Church and up towards Rocket once again. Southgate up alongside Lawrence. This could be a nice and easy Biggings victory. He storms by. Coleman's going to do the same thing. So now it's going to be the 2 of them head to head. Incredibly, they started this race 6th and 7th on the grid. They are already 1st and 2nd. That is what the wet conditions is doing to the drivers out there already. They're being very tentative on this first lap. Not Southgate and Coleman though. They have already slotted themselves neatly into 1st and 2nd. Lawrence is 3rd and Molyneux is 4th, so basically it is the normal running procedure in the top 4. Everybody else is going to be squabbling amongst themselves in the early stages as they make their drop down the hill towards Siemens and up towards the bus stop chicane. This is going to be a really interesting run. Oh, Coleman nearly spins it through Siemens, manages to catch the car as he drops into bus stop. Rain is coming down big style here at the Anglesey circuit as they tuck into the final turn. Going really well in the early stages for the leaders. There's Lawrence, was leading, is now in 4th position. Clearly the car not easy to get up to speed on this first lap, but with the massive wall of spray that they've got coming off the cars now, it is going to be very tricky indeed to see. Who said racing by the seaside was glamorous? It's absolutely sodden at the moment as the rain comes down in bucket loads. Through goes Molyneux. Very, very tentative on the acceleration as he comes through. This is Smales versus Harris as they continue to battle away for position. Matthew Harris from 2nd on the grid. Toby Smales from 4th on the grid. Smales has got a good run, though, on Harris, and surely he's going to out-drag him before they get to Church. And that's going to be a nice and simple pass from Toby Smales. He's got to be careful tiptoeing his way through the apex, though. The car does not want to swap ends in the middle of that right-hander, I tell you, because it's a very tricky way back. And even though there's a lot of clearance off to the barriers at that point of the circuit, once you get onto that grass, it's very difficult to get off it. So Harris passes our position with, I think that's Lee Bowden actually in tow. Now this is going to be an important one for Lee Bowden because actually in these conditions the production Boxster is not a bad car to be in because it's obviously the weather is going to change the rate of performance. The Boxsters in race spec are not that far different to the production Boxsters in terms of mechanical grip. So hopefully there's a few more big races to come. Smales, goodness me, very nearly goes off there at Peel Hairpin, manages to catch the car together, but obviously the racing line is not the normal line at this particular point. Going out wide, that is Harris, the 99, just going a little bit deep into Siemens, but then managing to catch it before they get to the bus stop. And Lee Bowden, although he's not got that front splitter, although he's not got that rear spoiler, is actually going very well in these conditions. Now, let's not forget that we've got the pit stop element of the race to come, and that will be in the middle 10 minutes of the race. The middle 7 minutes of the race, I said. It should be, I should have said. It's 7 minutes into the race, the pit stop window opens, and 14 minutes into the race, the pit stop window shuts, and that is the time allotted for the drivers to make their pit stops. Now, they have basically 1 lap in hand when the pit stop window closes, I believe, so that is where we're going to see a very interesting element of the race. Now, this is Peter Smith in the lead of the 924s we were looking at in the bottom left-hand corner, but Bowden is still attacking Matthew Harris and having a great run of it. Lee Bowden in the production Boxster, able to run loggerheads with the race spec machine, because obviously, although there's superior power in the race spec machine, there's a lot of grip. Oh, and that's off the circuit. Matthew Harris misses his turning point, manages to catch the car and bring it back on, but Lee Bowden actually catches him out there. So Matthew Harris, it looked to me as though he just caught the curb on the way in through the flat-out right-hand kink, and unfortunately it spat the car off onto the grass on the approach to Rocket. He was able to do the right thing, though, off the gas, kept calm, brought the car back onto the circuit and back into position. So nicely done from Matthew Harris, averted disaster there. Back out in front, it is Southgate versus Coleman. Now, the pit stop race is going to be the interesting part of the proceedings here, because, of course, we've got... Oh, now that's Baker trying to hold off Peter Smith and Gavin Johnson. Smith going for his first win of the weekend. 2 wins out of 2 for Gavin Johnson thus far. So they come through once again, but it is looking likely to be an interesting battle. But, of course, the pit stop element is added to it. We tried this out for the first time at Rockingham earlier in the season, of course, but back then there were only 2 strips, one on the rear windscreen, one on the front windscreen. There's been a third one added for this weekend, which is on the front splitter. Now, it's going to be interesting, because if there's an incident which knocks the front splitter off the cars, then that's going to be a very difficult part of the race. Now, I'm also not entirely sure if that strip has also been added to the 924s, because obviously the 924s don't have a front splitter in the same way, nor does the production Boxster category. So that's going to be an interesting element of it, but certainly in the race spec class, you can see on Andrew Baker's car as he comes towards us, there's a little strip on the right-hand side of the splitter. You should just see it. Well, I didn't quite see it as they went through. As Gavin Johnson now lines himself up behind Peter Smith. This would be one heck of a hat-trick to go for. But Gavin Johnson, always his own worst critic, is obviously going to be battling with his own inner demons as he tries to get one over on Peter Smith. This could be a very interesting battle for him. He's been very, very positive on social media about the way things have been going with the Power Distribution and Control race team, PDC Racing. Lots of good experiences and memories for them over the last 18 months, and obviously the entire Johnson family always go with him to all the races. There's a great little atmosphere in the PDC Racing team, as there has been pretty much since they came into the championship 2016. So great to see how they're continuing on. Peter Smith, though, hanging on in there in the lead of the race, as in the 924 battle, of course. There's so much standing water, and the thing is, drainage is an interesting element here, because the more rain comes down and it just collects, because we're right on the coast, of course, so the rain hits here heavier than it would be in probably some of the far regions of the Welsh coast. So this is going to be a very difficult case scenario for the drivers, as the circuit is probably going to get wetter rather than drier as the racing continues. But if the rain should stop, there's a lot of wind, obviously, with this being a coastal circuit. Basically, the wind will push the surface moisture and drain it quite quickly. So we could see a very interesting element of this race in the second half as we prepare for the pit stop element later on. Peter Smith able to run very close. See, this is what you get in the wet that you don't get in the dry. The 924s are actually able to run fairly evenly with the Porsche Boxsters, because the lack of power but increased grip really does help the 924 stay on top of it. You could almost say there's too much aero on the Porsche Boxster race spec machines in these wet conditions. It doesn't really help, whereas these cars that are very light and very sprightly and very nippy on the power, they have actually got a bit of an advantage in the wet conditions. They can run fairly similar lap times. Not quite exactly the same, but certainly closer than they would be in the dry. I've actually driven one of these 924s. In fact, it may even have been this exact car we're watching, Gavin Johnson's PDC racing car. I'm sure someone's going to correct me on social media and say it wasn't that one, but it was one of our other cars. But I did drive that at Alton Park at the beginning of last year, and it was wet conditions. And you really can get a proper sense of what these guys are going through when they push through those various apexes, up on the curbs and down on the road surface. You get a great feeling of control from these cars, even in wet conditions. As long as you're patient with the car and let it drift out to the apex, you can get an awful lot from them. Kevin Molyneux, we're on board with him now. He's come out of Church and up towards Rocket. Lots of standing water on the windscreen falling there as the drivers continue their battle in the lower position. This is for, I think, 7th position on the road this has got to be, isn't it? Baker versus Smith and Johnson. Johnson is trying to take the 924 lead off of Peter Smith. So let's see how they can continue on. The rain is just getting worse and worse and worse here at Toy Crease. But this is the British Racing and Sports Car Club. There's no running behind the safety car unless there's an incident. These guys have got to go for it. And Gavin Johnson's got a good run out of Church. He may get a chance on Peter Smith. Smith is going to cut across him. Smith may have to cut straight back across to the inside line to stop Johnson coming through. Baker's being very cautious on the brakes there. Matthew Harris is being caught by him as we ride on board with Kevin Molyneux. And Molyneux is going to be the first one to make the pit stop under pit stop rules since Rockingham. So into the pits comes Molyneux. He's got to be nice and careful. They come in. His mechanic is there. So the tear-off is gone there on the front two and then on the back, and he'll get the signal. Off you go. Nicely done. So Kevin Molyneux, that looked like a pretty quick pit stop for him. And Lee Bowden is going to be the next one to come in. So some of them are going to go straight away as soon as the pit window is open, which is now. Some of them are going to wait a couple of laps and see if they can gain track position. Oh, goodness me. James Coleman's got a real problem. He's getting steamed up there. Can't really see what he's doing. Well, we can't see what's going on, so how on earth can he? This is interesting. They're going to have to wipe that windscreen when he comes into the pits. How on earth can he see where he's going? Well, Adam Southgate is coming through, and he's coming in. So Southgate coming straight into the pits. So that is going to be his scheduled pit stop. We're on board with James Coleman. Surely he's going to need to come in and not only deal with that, but wipe the windscreen. Oh, he's going on. So James Coleman's continuing on. How can he see where he's going? That is absolutely incredible. James Coleman's still pushing on. I can't see through that windscreen. So how on earth can he? He comes back out of the pits. Adam Southgate, and Coleman is right there. So I guess Coleman has already made his pit stop. Adam Southgate coming in just a lap after him. We didn't see Coleman's pit stop, but it is, as it were, between the two of them. So Southgate in front of James Coleman, and he can't see a thing. What on earth is going on there? I'm not entirely sure what even the problem is, because the windscreen wipers are going full chat, and they're not improving things at all. They're not making a blind bit of difference to visibility. So I'm not entirely sure what's happened there. But there is Gary Lawrence tiptoeing his way around the circuit. This is more like powerboat racing than it is motor racing at the moment, as the cars are tiptoeing their way through. Is that Gary Lawrence going through? Yes, he's already made his pit stop, I believe. He's there in third position still. Either that or he's going to be the last one in. Bit tricky to see where things are at the moment, although Gary Lawrence is a little further around the lap. And this is, well, I think that's Andrew Baker we're trying to go alongside there, as Adam Southgate gets up alongside Gary Lawrence. Is that to overtake him in race condition? I think it might be. Gary Lawrence, I'm not sure. We're just taking his time and being very cautious about things. Where's James Coleman gone? He seems to have been held up a little bit there behind Andrew Baker. So really exciting battles in this one, but it's going to be a very, very strong victory for Adam Southgate, who's made light work of this. 2 wins out of 3 it's going to be here at Anglesey in the much, much trickier conditions of the Toy Crease Anglesey circuit. I think they're much, much more looking forward to the next round of the championship in the hope that it's going to be in dry weather. And that is 21, Ian Gribbett. Ian Gribbin going off. So Gribbin goes off right in front of Adam Southgate just as the race is coming to a close. But out of the final turn, it is going to be the 45 of Adam Southgate who gets the victory in atrocious conditions. He is going to come through. He goes into his last lap, in fact. I thought we were timed out, but my calculations on the timing was wrong. So James Coleman is going to come through this time. There is Adam Southgate through on his last lap, out of the final turn, and this time he will take the checkered flag. A brilliant result in very difficult conditions. 2 wins out of 3 this weekend. Second for Coleman ahead of Molyneux and Lawrence, who were a lap down in the end, ahead of Smales and Harris. Baker in 7th, and it's a hat-trick of victories for the man in the 924 battle, having an amazing run. Southgate leads the championship from Gary Lawrence ahead of Kevin Molyneux and James Coleman, but in victory position of the 924s now, Gavin Johnson has taken the lead of the Drivers' Championship, 6.5 points ahead of Hugh Pert.
Adam, congratulations on your win in race 3. Tricky conditions and the pit stop as well, but you seem to pretty much have that sewn up by the second corner.
Yeah, in fairness, I love the rain, and the car handles brilliantly in the rain as well. I had similar here at Anglesey last year, so I had a setup that was just dialed in. So yeah, it was a nice race, kind of easy to get through the pack. Pit stop makes it good fun, but yeah, happy with that to end the day.
Yeah, you had quite a big gap over James Coleman, so was it just a case of gently going round, not putting too much stress on the car and saving it for next time out?
No, to be honest, it's about keeping the hammer down to keep concentration up. So yeah, every lap is a fast lap, just so you keep awake.
Did you enjoy that, Kev? That seemed to be a bit of fun out there.
Oh no, definitely loved it, definitely loved it. But first, before we go, I need to say thank you to the guys at Racing Team 33, just to Lee and Paul and Big Dave to get me out there. Yeah, but absolutely awesome, loved it.
And the pit stop added a little bit of extra excitement, bit of extra lottery to the racing, but you came through, got on the podium.
Oh, definitely, yeah. Last time I stuck it in reverse, but this time I managed to find first and we was away quick out the pit, yeah.
Brilliant. Well, congratulations once again. Look forward to seeing you next time out.
No, thank you.